All right. Well, three marriages. Um, David White had has a whole book on this, and I differ with him a little bit, but he gave me the idea that there's more than one kind of marriage in this life. As a matter of fact, there's three at least, and there's one that's absolutely essential, and the other two sometimes you're lucky enough to have that, and sometimes you're not. But as long as you can understand the one most important marriage, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So we're going to talk about these three marriages today, and I'll take them out of order, really, or in whatever order they are. They're really in an order when you get into the cosmos, actually. Uh, but I want to talk about Pam a little bit and our marriage together for 50 years. It's fair to say, it's absolutely true to say that we wouldn't be right here right now without Pam. Uh, we've been living here 40 years, and you know, Loose Leaf Hollow wouldn't exist. That's for sure without her. And I'm not sure where I'd be. So I want to read a poem to her I've been working on. Gave it to her this morning with breakfast. Read it to her. So I will share it with you. It'll be the Monday morning musing tomorrow. Oh, by the way, I meant to mention this before we actually started, but I guess more people are here now, so that's good. But we won't be meeting next Sunday. I'll be taking Pam on a little honeymoon, second honeymoon. So Saturday morning retreat, our monthly retreat, so because it's going to be good. It's going to be good, and maybe it'll tide you over for the weekend. Okay. Well, here's the poem. And I really wrote it to her. I wrote it to be read at breakfast, which I did read to her today. It was pure grace meeting you that afternoon in 1966 in the parking lot in front of the pool hall. You had car trouble and you asked for help. And I drove you home to Jackson Avenue in the South Heights. We grew closer for the next 5 years with a minor hiccup or two. We said, I do, on an August day, but help me was written on the soles of my shoes, a funny prank that was totally prophetic. You were then, and still are, the realest person I've ever met. You are as real and as rooted and as magnificent as the giant beech tree that shadows our porch here in the hollow. You claim you don't understand all this quantum stuff that I've been yakking about. But the reality is, our marriage has been one quantum leap after another. Leaping off to Ireland the day after we were married. Leaping off to Houston the day after we returned. Leaping into parenthood. Leaping into the cauldron of couples therapy. Leaping off to Kentucky after our marriage resurrected. Leaping into caregiving for mom and dad. Leaping into creating Loose Leaf Hollow. Leaping into the fire to resurrect our marriage yet again. Sweetheart, our marriage has always been a huge leap of faith. Sure, every marriage ages, but not every marriage ages well. The heart of this aging process and our marriage is grace. The grace of kindness, the grace of freedom to keep growing, and especially the grace to forgive and to keep retuning that priceless Stradivarius that some still call a real marriage. Yeah, I call this poem a priceless Stradivarius. The Stradivarius was created by an Italian and still is probably one of the finest violins you can buy. So subtle and so just fine and subtle that it often goes out of tune in the middle of a song. Anybody who's like a first chair in an orchestra violinist, they got a Stradivarius. They got to be, it's so fine that can easily go out of tune and usually does. So sometimes I have to tune up mid-song, but it's worth it. And that's sort of the image of the one of the three marriages when you decide to live day in day out with somebody. It's a hell of a spiritual practice if you haven't tried it, and if you have tried it, you know that because the work is always there. Just living that closely with one other person for however long, we've been together 55 years. It's quite a practice. Yeah, and really it involves some leaping. You were in a quantum universe. Who would get married if if you knew absolutely everything that was going to happen? You'd have to be really courageous because the ego would say no way, no way. One of my groomsmen, a guy named Seamus Shinners, he actually put a couple of pieces of athletic tape, the white kind of tape, on the bottom of my shoes. And the left shoe said help, and the right shoe said me. And every time we knelt down on the kneelers in this Catholic church, laughter came up. And every time it was a little bit more laughter. And I didn't know if my pants were slit or what, but it was a prank. We pranked each other throughout college, but it turned out to be prophetic. You need a lot of help. Anybody needs a lot of help when you're trying to live with one other person so close for any amount of time. You have guests for 3 days, they start to smell like fish, as the Italians say, but 3 years, 30 years, 50 years, yeah. So I did need the help, and the help is grace. It's there. It's there. Yeah. Yeah. The grace to just the grace of kindness, the grace of freedom to keep growing. There has to be a certain amount of space, especially when you're living so close. The grace of freedom to keep growing, and especially the grace to forgive and to keep retuning this instrument called the marriage. Well, that's one kind of marriage. And there's two more because not everybody is granted that. And it just doesn't work out for one reason or another. And some people, vowed monastics are just people who end up living the single life. They don't have that. Although, we spend a lot of time with a lot of people on the job and in communities like this. We have spent a lot of time together. Some of us here more than a year together on a regular basis. So there's lots of other kinds of marriages. But the first one people think of is kind of marriage between two people. Second kind of marriage I want to talk about is the relationship, not with another human being, but with the ultimate source, the reality, the really real. Well, in most cases, God isn't a big enough word for that. Our work together here is actually expanding that little three-letter word for some of us because it's too small or it's been too twisted to really be of any help. But God, Allah, Brahman, Buddha nature, the Tao, there's a lot of words we throw at this, the ultimate reality. And so this is the only marriage that's non-negotiable. You're in it whether you know it or not, because we're intimately connected with absolute reality on whatever contemplative tradition you talk about, even quantum physics. So we're connected to this, but we don't know it. We're wandering husband and wives who don't know we have this marriage. And when you do know it, the point is to show up every day, to be present to the really real. Now we have that built in, here, in a few minutes, we'll actually go through that kind of ritual where we drop everything and drop out of anything relative and drop into the absolute dimension of meditation or contemplative prayer. We do that every time. And Saturday we do a kind of intensive thing this next Saturday where we have two double sits, so we spend a little bit more time. But to check in every day, doesn't have to be all that formal, but to realize you're married to all this, and it's good to take some vows. After the last major returning Pam and I did, we wrote some new vows. I couldn't remember the old ones. That was part of the problem. And we today, most days we say it, that's our grace before breakfast. We eat breakfast together every day, or tried to. And we repeat these four simple vows we have to each other. And so, vows to the real, what are they? Take it seriously. This is the one thing you can't get, you gotta have. And you do have, it's just a question, we have no idea about that. Most people have no idea they're married to all of this. And what does that mean? So that's the one that everybody's got no matter what. And then the third one would be your marriage to your own journey. Everybody's on their own journey. It's terrific that we can get 30 people here all on their own journey together to support one another, to encourage one another, but we're all on our own journey. The Santiago that the metaphorical end of the journey, well, never really ends. And the journey is to become your best self, to become your true self, to become real, to become whole. And that's everybody's journey. And along the way, that's everybody's vocation, you could say. Everybody's calling is this pilgrim journey to become who you are, and to become your best self. And then to bring that to this, really troubled planet that we have right now, to bring your best self with all the energy of it to this this world. And that's a real vocation. Now, along the way, because we're living 2 or 3 lifetimes, compared to classical, antiquity, where they lived to be 20, you're lucky, maybe 30. We're living 71, 80, 90. We're living 2 or 3 lifetimes. Your roles may change, but the vocation is the same. And the vocation means your calling, your calling, your destiny to bring yourself fully into this world. That's the great present we give to each other. That's what the world is waiting for. And that takes encouragement, that takes nurturance. And yeah, it's a solitary path, as the guy, the French policeman in the film The Way says to the guy who thought he was walking the Camino for his dead son. He said, "You walked away only for yourself, only for yourself, because we all have a destiny." The fact that you could walk with somebody else, like I've walked with Pam for so many years, or you could walk with a community like this. That's rare. That's rare. And so we really, think about making vows to those three journeys so that it's not so casual or not really we forget. I mean, what is our great gift as human beings on the surface of things is, we're homo amnesian. We forget everything. We forget you're married, you forget that there is something called the really real out there. There is something that I like George Lucas is there is a force. He just called it the force. There is a force for good in this world, and we're meant to be part of that force. Lord knows the world needs as much good as we can bring into it. But you'll be able to bring the most good when you really understand how you're meant to live, how you're meant to interact. That's part of the vocation of being a pilgrim. You walk the way you're meant to walk, and you can't walk the way anybody else walks. You walk to the beat of your own heart. Let's see. So these three marriages, the marriage to the really real, the marriage to another person, or to a group, and then the marriage to your own journey, that you to realize that you are on a journey. You give it a sense of gravitas, that you're on it. Let's give everything to it. Well, all right. Maybe let's just move to on that note. Let's move to kind of meditation posture here, and we'll dive in.